The evening sun was setting over the city as people rushed home after a long day. Among the crowd, a young woman named Emma sat quietly at a small park bench with her two little children, Mia and Leo. They were huddled together over a single fast food meal, one burger, one drink, and a small packet of fries. Emma tore the burger into 3 pieces, giving the biggest portions to her kids, smiling softly despite the ache in her stomach. She told them she wasn't hungry, but in truth, she hadn't eaten all day. A tall man stood across the street, observing the scene. He was dressed in a sharp black suit, holding his phone, clearly a man of means. His name was Alexander Grant, a billionaire businessman known for his ruthlessness and sharp business instincts. But at that moment, all the power and wealth in the world seemed meaningless as he watched the small family sharing a single meal with such love and warmth. Something inside him shifted, a feeling he hadn't known in years. Emma's children giggled, wiping ketchup from their faces. "Mommy, will we have pizza tomorrow?" Leo asked innocently. Emma smiled faintly, hiding the tears forming in her eyes. "Maybe, sweetheart, we'll see." She didn't have the heart to tell them she had just lost her second job that day. Her rent was due, and her fridge was nearly empty. Still, she kept her faith. She believed that one day things would change, even if she didn't know how. Alexander couldn't take his eyes off them. He had grown up poor himself, though the world had long forgotten that. He'd buried his emotions beneath luxury cars and towering offices. Yet seeing Emma's gentle love for her children stirred something buried deep within him. Without thinking, he walked into the cafe behind the park, ordered 3 full meals, and asked the waiter to bring them quietly to the woman on the bench. When the waiter arrived with the food, Emma looked confused. "Excuse me, ma'am, this is from the gentleman over there," he said, pointing to Alexander. She looked up in surprise, her heart racing. Alexander gave a small nod from afar. Her eyes filled with tears. "Tell him thank you so much," she whispered. Her children clapped with joy, their little faces lighting up at the sight of warm food. But Alexander didn't stop there. He walked over slowly and sat down beside them. "Mind if I join you?" he asked softly. Emma hesitated, unsure why a man like him would want to talk to someone like her. "Of course," she finally said. He smiled and introduced himself, but left out his title and wealth. "I'm Alex," he said simply. They began talking, and as the conversation flowed, Alexander found himself laughing, genuinely, for the first time in years. Emma told him about her life. How she lost her husband in an accident 3 years ago, how she worked double shifts to support her kids, and how she still tried to teach them kindness and gratitude every day. Alexander listened carefully, not interrupting. Her words humbled him. He realized how much he'd taken for granted, how disconnected he'd become from real people and real emotions. Before leaving, Alexander handed her a business card. "If you ever need help finding work, call me," he said gently. She smiled politely, assuming he was just being kind. "Thank you," she said, tucking the card into her worn-out purse. She didn't know yet that she was holding the key to a future beyond her imagination. That night, Alexander couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Emma and her kids. He looked her up through his contacts, using the small details she'd shared, and found out that she had indeed been recently fired from a cleaning job at one of his own company's branches. Guilt washed over him. The company she worked so hard for hadn't even noticed her struggle. The next morning, he called his HR department. "I want you to find Emma Blake," he said. "Reinstate her immediately, and double her salary. Also, make sure she receives full benefits." His assistant was confused but obeyed. Alexander then added, "And tell her to meet me at the headquarters tomorrow. I want to discuss something personally." When Emma received the call, she thought it was a mistake. "Double my salary, and a meeting with Mr. Grant?" she asked in disbelief. She had no idea who Alexander really was until that moment. She almost didn't go, afraid it was too good to be true, but her children's hopeful eyes gave her courage. She arrived at the company the next day, wearing her only formal dress, one she had sewn herself years ago. As she entered the grand lobby, she felt out of place among the polished marble floors and expensive suits. When Alexander appeared, her heart skipped. "Alex," she whispered. He smiled warmly. "Emma, I wanted to talk about your future." He explained how he had found out about her job and decided to personally oversee her case. "You deserve better," he said. "People like you keep this world running, yet you're the first ones to suffer when it falls apart." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Why are you doing this for me?" she asked softly. He looked at her and said, "Because once, someone helped me when I was in your shoes." Alexander offered her a position as his personal assistant, a stable job with a good salary, flexible hours, and support for her children's schooling. Emma couldn't speak for a moment. I don't know what to say," she stammered. "Just say yes," he smiled. She nodded, overwhelmed with gratitude. Weeks passed, and Emma flourished in her new role. Her kindness touched everyone in the office. She treated the staff with respect, often bringing small homemade snacks for the team. Alexander noticed how her presence changed the atmosphere. People smiled more, worked harder, and even spoke to him with new warmth. Meanwhile, Emma's children began attending a better school thanks to Alexander's support. They often visited the office, bringing drawings for Mr. Alex. He would laugh and pin their colorful pictures on his wall, replacing the cold certificates that once filled his space. For the first time, his office felt alive. One afternoon, Alexander invited Emma and her kids to dinner at a fine restaurant. "I want to celebrate your progress," he said. As they dined, he watched them with quiet joy. Mia spilled her juice, and Emma apologized nervously, but Alexander just laughed. "It's okay. My table needed some color anyway," he joked, making everyone giggle. After dinner, he handed Emma an envelope. Inside was a set of apartment keys. "What is this?" she asked, confused. "A home," he said. "For you and your kids. Consider it a gift, a fresh start." She covered her mouth in shock. "I can't accept this," she whispered. "You already have," he replied gently. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she hugged him. News of Alexander's quiet act of kindness spread within the company, but he never spoke publicly about it. "It's not charity," he told his managers. "It's humanity." His boardroom decisions began to change. More family support programs, better wages for single parents, and a new foundation in Emma's name to help struggling families. Months turned into years, and Emma grew into her role with confidence. Her children thrived, and Alexander became like family to them. Sometimes, they would visit the park, the same one where they had met, and sit on the old bench, sharing stories and laughter. It reminded them that even small moments can change lives forever. One evening, Emma looked at Alexander and said, "You know, that day at the park, I thought it was the end. For me, I was losing hope." He smiled softly. "Funny, that day was the beginning for me. You reminded me what really matters." Their eyes met, and an unspoken bond of gratitude and affection lingered between them. Emma's story soon inspired others across the city. Newspapers called her the woman who taught a billionaire to feel again. But to her, he was simply Alex, the man who saw her heart when the world only saw her struggle. Together, they continued helping others, one small act of kindness at a time. On the anniversary of their first meeting, Alexander arranged a small community event at the park. He built a playground in honor of single parents, with a plaque that read, "Kindness is the wealth that never runs out." Emma stood beside him as children laughed and played around them, tears glistening in her eyes. "Do you ever think about how different life could have been if you hadn't walked by that day?" Emma asked. Alexander smiled, looking at her and the children. "Every day," he said. "But I'm glad I did." For once, he felt richer than any number could ever define. That evening, as the sun set again over the city, Emma and Alexander sat quietly, just as they had years ago. The kids ran around the park, their laughter echoing through the air. Emma turned to him and said softly, "Thank you, for believing in us." He replied, "No, Emma. Thank you, for teaching me how to care again." From that day forward, Alexander dedicated part of his fortune to creating opportunities for families like Emma's. His foundation became one of the most respected in the country, not for its size, but for the sincerity behind it. And every time he saw a struggling mother, he remembered the night that changed everything. Emma's children grew up knowing that kindness could transform lives. They called Alexander Uncle Alex, and often told their friends, "He's the man who gave us hope." Alexander, now older and wiser, often said, "I gave them help, but they gave me purpose." Years later, when Alexander passed away peacefully, the park bench was adorned with flowers from hundreds of families he had touched. Among them stood Emma, now a successful woman herself. She whispered, "You'll always live here, in every meal shared, every hand lifted, every heart you changed." And as the wind brushed her tears away, she smiled, because she knew his legacy of kindness would never fade.